The two big points I wanted to introduce here with this release are the ability to easily update your maps in real time across platforms, and really curating the places that you're showing on those maps with POI filtering, point of interest filtering, for the first time. Now, I wanted to start off with a little experiment for the audience here. Below are 3 different Google Map applications from very different customer verticals. Shown, we have a world-class hospital, a supermarket chain, and a trendy pop-up retailer with stores in New York City. And without thinking about it too much, can you spot the difference between those 3 customers' apps? So the reality is it's the same map. And that's kind of been the status quo for Google Maps for a while, having a one-size-fits-all approach. And in some ways this works. It's familiar, people know what to look for. But in many cases, it makes sense to make changes, sometimes subtle, sometimes drastic. And when you think about Google Maps and what they've done over the past 15 years, is they've created a map that has to work for everyone in every situation, whether it be driving down the highway, walking around a new city, God, even navigating inside buildings now. That's no easy task to have something that goes from the world down to an individual building scale. But when we have a map on our website or in our application, we're usually trying to do something very specific with it, convey a certain message like, hey, here's all of our store locations, or here's where to find us on this particular block. Other times, the map is simply there for orientation's sake, and we're trying to layer information on top of it as part of the story, like showing residential properties for sale in a city or showing all of the parks. So I wanted to share a little bit of my philosophy around this after designing maps for nearly 10 years now, to share you a sense of why these styling tools might be able to make a big difference within your company or organization. And the number one that comes to mind is being able to customize your map to fit your brand. It's no secret that companies invest a lot of time and resources into their brand, which these days goes a lot further than just your name and your logo. A specific brand identity has colors, a look, a mood, the ability to make a customer feel a certain way when they think about your company. A huge amount of energy is put into this brand building and the consistency and maintaining it across all these different channels. And this is prevalent in advertising, in social media, in marketing, in web design. But so often, and I've noticed this as a consumer myself, when we get to the map part of their website, it's the same thing on every site. No differentiation. And that's no longer going to be the case, because you can bring elements of your unique brand right onto the map to have that seamless experience where people think you made this from scratch yourself, but in reality, it's all the information from Google Maps. But it goes a lot further than just the colors. When cartographers are thinking about map design, a representation of our world, it's not only about what we show, it's also about what we don't show. And there's so many questions you can ask yourself depending on the scale we're talking about, whether it's an entire state or just one town. Understanding where our customers are coming from or going to, whether they're taking the highways or need to see public transit stops or parking and walking and water. There are so many elements to think about, and including just enough information so people can locate themselves but not overwhelm them. It's a very intricate balance, and as much of an art form as it is a science. But the end result can be really powerful when it's done right. It's kind of one of those things that when you have the perfect map, you don't even really notice, just because the information is clear. You're not really having to think much to use it. So just for a little bit of fun here, here's some of the different color combinations I came up with in a few minutes, and just how different you can approach the same map by making a few adjustments. And because we have so many variables to choose from within this styling tool, there are literally millions of possibilities here. So you can create something that's truly unique to your company, your brand, your organization, and they're going to associate that with you and you alone, potentially. Now, I wanted to share a few more examples here, thinking about map design and when it makes sense to use these tools. So here's an example of a map just as it was published on the Maps platform of the Esplanade Park here in Boston on the waterfront. And what I can say at first glance is it's a bit overwhelming because we have a very specific area in mind, this little strip along the Charles River. And we have all these points of interest and landmarks. But what we also have is all these other points of interest, all over the city, including across the river. And when I look at this, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be looking at the Whole Foods or the parking lot near Faneuil Hall. Like, there's a lot going on. So what if we could take the same concept and really focus it on what we want our users to see? So when we go into the style editor, this is kind of what it's going to look like. You have all these controls on the left-hand side. And one of the most useful of these I found in my playing around with it is this POI density slider. And with just one control, we can go from a very clean map where there's only a couple icons shown, all the way up to very dense where we're showing everything. And depending on your business need, having just that one level of control can make a big difference in how your information is being interpreted. And there's quite a lot more that we can do within here that I'll get into in a moment. Remember our first 3 maps from a couple of slides back. Here's how I would approach a redesign with a healthcare user in mind. And if we're making a map for this premier world-class hospital, it's pretty important that we keep it focused and keep it to the point, and also make it calming. I mean, chances are if someone's having to head over to the hospital, they have enough on their mind already, and they don't need to see, where all this other stuff is around there. They just want to get where they're going without distractions. So using the styling tools, this is an example I quickly came up with. We were able to change the background of the campus to this blue color and then filter out everything that's not a healthcare point of interest. So the focus is drawn exactly to these end destinations. So they're not having to worry about ending up at the store down the road when they're trying to get to the eye care facility. Again, just making some simple tweaks to the coloring and those point of interest really can make your destination pop and also remove the distractions that might make it harder for people to get where they actually want to be. And again, this decluttering has big implications when it comes to bringing in our own data. Say, like, we're running a shuttle service between campuses, or perhaps having our parking lots and even parking spaces overlaid on the map. When you take away some of that background information, it gives you a much better canvas to start layering on custom data. That's something that AppGeo really specializes in. So I want you to think about that as a possible outcome of these tools as well. So again, we can hide those non-relevant points of interest, really focus our colors, maybe even using a color from our brand or our logo. And in this case, I specifically have kept those train stations and subway stations on the map because people might be coming to our facility using those transit or the highways. So again, lots of things to think about, but this tool makes it easy to experiment and play around. So how about our retail store example? When we have all these conveniences of online shopping, sometimes the main reason people, especially I think people my age, are going out on doing in-person shopping is for that fun experience. And why not extend some of that to the map that your users are using to try to locate your stores? And one of the most common implementations of Maps API we've seen as a partner are for these store locator apps where you put in your zip code or hit find me and it's going to pop up the nearest store to you. So why not make your store locator map part of that custom experience around your brand that you've built? And furthermore, by default, normally you might have all these other businesses and competitors potentially popping up on the map. If I'm a clothing store, the way Google Maps tends to work is it's going to bundle points of interest. So by default, it might be showing lots of other clothing stores on the same map. And with these features, we have far more control over what is and what isn't shown using that point of interest category filter or even type of business filter. So after transformation, I think this one becomes a lot more clear. our 3 locations really pop. We've brought in colors potentially from our brand into the map for the streets. And we've hidden everything but like the neighborhood names. So people can orient themselves. They know what neighborhood your store is, but they don't need to be seeing all of that other detail if it might not be super relevant. And especially for, these more modern businesses who have a younger customer base or are trying to do more with digital media, I think this is going to be a really important feature. And I'm hoping a lot of our customers can take advantage of it. And one area I wanted to make sure we hit on is how is this feature relevant to the public sector as well? Here at AppGeo, we work with a lot of state and local government customers. It's kind of been our bread and butter for almost 30 years in business. And we're making a lot of maps for the public sector. And one thing that I thought was pretty interesting about this new feature is that we can selectively show just municipal buildings while hiding other businesses. So say I'm making a map for the Department of Public Health or a school district, I don't have to show all the bars and the fast food places down the street on my map. The other area here is letting your custom data shine. I think government customers especially are going to have more custom data layers than probably anyone. So whether it be voting district boundaries or demographic profiles or even parks and recreation data. Being able to bring that in on top of your map cleanly really creates a unique experience for those using your map. And I wanted to share one fun little anecdote. First we'll look at just the transformation image. Here's a county, and they're downtown. And now say we wanted to take this same map and make it more appropriate for their government page. We can apply a few color transformations and filtering, so we have just those municipal buildings really popping out, very clean, and we're ready to do any kind of overlays or custom data on top of this. And the little story here, while I was doing the research for this presentation, I came across a statewide map here in Massachusetts. It was all the parks and their various amenities, and it was hosted on another mapping platform that's very common for government users. But what I thought was kind of funny is when you click to get directions to any of these parks, it linked you to Google Maps in a new tab. So the moral of the story here is, why not just build your app in the tool that your users are going to end up on anyways, regardless? It creates a cleaner experience. They can stay within your page with embedded maps. And honestly, it's going to drive a lot more traffic to your own site rather than sending it away. So just to give you a little bit more of the nuts and bolts here, how you actually can use these tools. Previously, editing map styles meant changing a whole lot of code in your application's HTML. And this had to be done for every map. And then you had to get into the files on your website. They're hosted on the FTP server. Now you got to call the web guy. It was kind of a chore and a lot of different lines of code to even make a handful of changes. That is now no more, as all of the styling is hosted within the Google Cloud Platform console. So here's an example of what that's going to look like for you when you go in. You have all of your different type of features on the left, different options for changing text color or outlines or prominence, so we can even scale the width up and down for various features. That's just for like the map itself. And then for points of interest, we can selectively turn them on and off, change the color, do quite a bit of custom styling. And there's a lot to dive into within this. And I don't want to make this a full tutorial on how to use it, but more introduce you to what is possible. And if you have more questions, we'd love to be in touch as a partner on how you can go a bit deeper. The other big deal here for any of the developers in the room, especially with cloud-based styling, all of our changes are saved to a single map ID. So within your map's code, you have this one line that references a specific map. And anytime we make changes, those are going to be captured in the backend and automatically update. So rather than anytime we want to make a change, having to go in and edit dozens of lines of code, we don't have to edit anything other than the look of the map itself, and this is automatically going to carry over. Additionally, having this map ID means we could implement the same map across multiple applications, and just have a lot more control. So just kind of wrapping up the style features here and the key points that I want to take away with you all. Having this increased control over the places you show, from that how many points of interest are shown to fine-tuning the type of business, and even going within whether I want to show lodging or shopping or food and drink, car rental, gas stations. We can turn those all on or off individually, which is very powerful, especially when you're in one of those industries. If I'm a car rental place, I might like to show gas stations because that's where people are going to fill up before they bring it back. But I don't need to show all the other lots where they could have rented from instead. And that's something we can do now. This style manager window lets me very quickly see all the maps I've made, quickly get that code, go in, make tweaks. And it's a very nice way to categorize and collect different styles depending on what you need. You could have one for your store locator, one for your iPhone or Android application, and manage them all in this very visual library type view. I found this really cool. And it helps collaboration for teams as well, as they can easily go in and see visually which map they're working on. And again, the ability to have all these updates send to your applications in real time is really key. Not having to take down your site or push updates to anything outside of the cloud console makes it really easy for both you and your customers, because all this is happening in the cloud rather than in HTML and in sending updates to your applications. And lastly, this is what the map management window looks like. You can see I have different maps set up with different map IDs for each. We can define whether they're for the JavaScript API, the maps for Android, or maps for iOS. And I believe support for static maps is coming soon, but I'll have to verify that with the folks over at Google. And next, that brings us to local context, which is the second beta feature we're looking at today. So local context is a little bit different in that it is more of a plugin for the existing maps, but I think you'll find it really interesting. And I'll show you an example that I was able to build using it. So just understanding what is local context, we like to think about it as a turnkey solution that lets you show accurate, up-to-date details for nearby places, so users can quickly go in and see ratings, reviews, and photos, and directions, very importantly, without ever leaving your existing app. And this might not seem like a big deal, but the situation we've been faced with for many years is if you want to get, say, the star rating on a restaurant nearby your hotel, for example, you would have to click and go off of your application, and now we're opening up new tabs and essentially leaving your website, which is a big deal when you talk about customer retention and actually, maybe making that booking. It leaves a lot of opportunities to get distracted. So with local context, you're bringing all this onto your own page. And it's pretty simple. We can define a type or category of business we'd like to highlight, and you can pick from all the things we talked about already. And it's going to auto-populate a number of them on the left-hand side, close to your point of interest that you've defined. Now, that could be like a neighborhood in a city that you want to really highlight. Hey, what are the best, most hip, fun places in this neighborhood that I'm traveling to? Or it could be your own business, and you're trying to show maybe nearby places to grab a cup of coffee, or museums, or any of these number of destinations that are stored in Google Maps places. Now, if we have cooperation here, I'm going to hop out of the presentation and show you what this looks like live. So you can see here's an application that I built very quickly, and I'm actually not a developer, I'm a map designer, so the fact that I was able to do this speaks to that it's not too terribly challenging. So I've put a pin here at our AppGeo Boston office, which a lot of us miss since we've been working from home for a little bit. But I've told local context to populate my map with some of the top restaurants that are all within walking distance of the office, and this is what it's made. So just a couple lines of code, and this is the map that's produced. We were also able to bring in that custom style that I designed as well. So hovering over any of these restaurants, we can click on it. It's going to give us a little pop-up with a star rating, tell us a little bit about it, and I see that it's a 2-minute walk. So if I'm trying to get a quick lunch in during the workday, this might be a good spot. Or maybe we want to go somewhere a little fancier for an after work get together to like celebrate a birthday or someone's work anniversary. We can check out the pictures on the left-hand side, see something cool, and then maybe bring up a larger photo to see, oh yeah, they have seating for 12, or one that I thought was interesting here. They've actually gone ahead and shown whether they have outdoor seating available now that we're doing more distancing, and restaurants are getting a little more innovative with how they're able to safely serve customers. Oh yes, here we are. So you can see right from the picture, they've set up outdoor dining with even plexiglass barriers. So if I was planning a lunch in downtown Boston at this point, this might be a good place to check out. And we can see that all from this app. Don't have to go anywhere else. Don't have to go onto Yelp. We have it here on our Google map. So hopping back in here, again, being able to bring up pictures really quickly gives you a much more immersive experience than was previously available. And this is a plugin that lives right on top of the Maps API. So anyone who's currently using Maps on their application may be able to take advantage of this feature. And just running through who we think this is a good fit for, who Local Context has in mind. And we like to keep an open mind to these, so I'm sure there's many more, but a few that come to us at the onset are hospitality users and also restaurant chains potentially. Creating a really concierge-like experience for your guests where they know where they're going to be staying. Well, they're also going to want to go out and do activities during the day or evening. Why not show them that right through your own application? Same for travel or tourism. If you're going to a brand new city, you're going to want to explore. This helps you do that by highlighting those top destinations. And lastly, it might not be as obvious, but within real estate and economic development, we can target a specific neighborhood and say, I'm looking at a property in this neighborhood, but I also like to go out and now and again, what's around me? And by having this, you would be able to have customers explore around a property they're, considering purchasing without ever leaving your real estate page, for example, without ever leaving the listing. So, all great fits for Local Context, and we're excited to experiment and hopefully find a whole lot more as the beta program continues. So with that, I'd like to hand it back over to Katie just to take us to the next part of the presentation and give you a little more idea of how you could get started with Google Maps and some of these new features.
Great. Thanks so much, Aaron. That was really comprehensive walkthrough on how you can start to think about some of these new features that are, baked into Google Maps. And also, I think it's a good way that you laid it out on how simple it is to implement, especially for the Maps customization. That's really where we've made some big changes, is really reducing the time to implement those styles, which is really great. So now that we've talked more broadly about that Maps customization as well as Local Context, I really like to think about the, as Aaron had mentioned, more of a broad net on what else this is, can be applied to. One thing that comes to mind for me is a specific case around roadside assistance, and thinking about, if you have a user who's stranded on the side of the road, and maybe you're an insurance company, car insurance focused, that provides roadside assistance, having a map in that moment on that user's phone that shows, where your driver's at, to come and help your user, but also show not the broad consumer map, but a really focused map on local auto body shops as well as gas stations. I think in that moment is very reassuring to your user to know, okay, I'm actually not in the middle of nowhere and help is on the way. Ultimately, at the end of the day here, we're always thinking about the user and how they can have the best possible experience. So certainly keeping them on your sites and adding to the brand familiarity, especially with the Maps customization, I think makes their day a little bit easier. Another case that I just want to call out as well is that travel experience use case. I mean, I know I don't want to speak for everyone on the call, but I think most of us are really excited to get back to travel when it's safe to do so. And I think the idea of having a more curated experience on those travel booking websites is something that's really helpful, especially if you're traveling somewhere internationally, or maybe, even the state next door that you might not be as familiar with, and being able to stay on that site all in one place and make the best use of your time to determine, okay, so these are the bars and restaurants near me that are interesting, and I can go ahead and plan my trip from there. So where do we go from here? And it's fairly easy to get everything all set up. So Erin, if you don't mind just advancing to the next slide, thank you. If you are an existing Google Maps user, and you're potentially already working with AppGeo, just go ahead and ask Erin or Jordan or myself after this call, and we'd be happy to walk you through how to get these things set up. If you're a brand new user, you can just go to our Google Maps website, and it's as easy as setting up a billing account with us. This is something that will take you 5 minutes to set up. And once you have that squared away, you'll be able to start accessing our APIs. One thing that's really nice about the way the Google Maps platform console is set up is it's really clear and easy to see where your usage is coming from each of the Google Maps APIs that you may be interested in leveraging. One further step is to certainly create different projects. Maybe if you're a government agency, you might have different departments who are leveraging Google Maps platform. Well, you can break all of those out into separate projects just to make sure that they're all separate, and still be able to see the usage of each of those departments. From there, you go ahead and just enable those APIs. We have a free $200 credit that's applied once a month. So if you're just very new to Google Maps and looking to get started, you can go ahead and start playing around, and you have that $200 free credit of usage that you can access right away. And then from there, of course, getting the API key, and you're set.